This is something that really jumped out at me at NAB, and considering it was the first booth I stopped at and recorded at, for good reason. It's really cool. This is the Deity PR4, and among all the awesomeness, I have had a weird quirk, but also, I don't know. It's a long story. We'll get into it. Now, I should point out that I got the cage for mine, but honestly, this is almost a must-have considering how versatile it makes the unit. Now, I also got the pouch. That's kind of use-dependent though. But otherwise, the unit itself doesn't feel cheap whatsoever. All the encoders are also push-button, and the buttons themselves are pretty decent as well. The on button has a safeguard from somebody actually turning it off, which is actually a nice touch. And when you do turn it on, that screen is as vibrant as ever. Keep in mind though, the screen is not touch screen, which kind of at its sides, probably for the best, especially with sausages like these. Those menus are well fleshed out and pretty easy to navigate. However, I will say there is a bit of a learning curve here. But once you're used to where everything is, you can zoom around the menus pretty quick. Now moving to the side, you have the two XLR inputs. You have a DC power connector, as well as an unbalanced input for 3 and 4. Of course, I should point out that this can also take AES-3 and AES-42. Now, if you don't know what that refers to, you probably don't need that. Now, if you want me to go into AES in a further video, let me know. On the output side of things, you've got the Type-C, analog outputs, a timecode output, and headphones. As for the back, you've got a battery bank, which also houses the SD card slot, and of course, the logo. It also acts as a tally light, letting you know if you're recording or not. That is a really cool feature. No more wondering halfway through if I hit record. Okay, so we'll keep specs kind of quick. The main things you need to know about, this thing has 137 dB of dynamic range, 60 dB of gain with an EIN of neg 125 dB UA weighted. Now, those last numbers are pretty telling. SM7Bs are basically out, and frankly, most dynamics. But considering this is a filmmaker's interface for camera top audio, I'm guessing you don't have a ribbon mic on the end of that pole, do you? Next, this thing has 32-bit float for onboard recording, meaning any audio that may surprise you can be gained down in post, so no concern when you're on the run. Also, this thing has recording redundancy. There is 64 gigs of onboard recording above and beyond that SD card, not to mention the third layer of protection if you have the audio out going into your camera, meaning there's literally no reason for you to screw up your audio with this. Now, of course, I have mentioned most of the features already, but this thing comes rather packed full of stuff. For instance, you can do routing, so you're getting the exact audio out to both cameras and headphones. Of course, you can get the wired and wireless timecode. But there was a couple new things on here that I didn't expect. First is something called VoiceAware Auto Mix, which is kind of a virtual producer with their hands on the pods. Now, when somebody is talking on one input, the other inputs will come down a bit. This is just for the stereo mix, for reference, not necessarily for anything in post. But it's still a cool add-on and another tool for those on-the-run producers, especially when trying to make sure you're capturing everything you need in a noisy environment. And speaking of noisy, there's also something called Live Hit Denoiser. This is exactly as it says, but it doesn't look to be impacting the ambience as aggressively as some of those other denoisers. We're going to take a look at that in a bit. And finally, this is going to be contentious, but this thing supports polywave. Now, if you're not a fan of the form factor, it's pretty easy to unpack them, and most DAWs let you do it right in there. So I don't have the wind protector on, sorry about that, but I just wanted to point out the noise reduction on the Deity PR4 and the difference you might notice in noise reduction for units like this. It's going to be a little different than the stuff you see in prosumer gear, where the noise reduction gets rid of all the noise. Now you'll notice, you can hear some traffic in the background. And as I put the noise reduction on, you can hear the reduction. That's 20 dB of reduction. And as I bring it back, You can hear the traffic coming back into. Again, we'll bring it down to -20. You can still kind of hear the traffic, but definitely my voice ends up going up and over it. And this is the big difference with pro noise reduction, because what this is meant for is professional productions, kind of run and gun stuff like this, where you're at is actually usually part of the story. So if you're recording at a construction site or you're recording by a busy intersection, usually that sound is part of your story, so you want to get it in there. But sometimes it's a little loud, so you do want to bring it down a little bit. And that's what this does. And that's actually a really cool implementation. I really like that. This is the noise reduction with the Deity PR4. So then what's this nagging issue I brought up in the beginning? It's actually kind of weird. You see, I shot this video last week and everything was going great until I got to editing the video. And then I heard something. I went back to the audio and I saw this, an anomaly. And anytime the signal decides to lift off that center line there, it's never great. Now, Deity kind of downplayed it, which I did find a touch weird, but it does make sense they don't want to tell me what it is if they know. However, I think I figured it out. You see, when you look at the waveform, this isn't happening consistently, or at least it doesn't look like it at first glance. But then when you look at where it does happen, it is specifically after every time I was passing a certain threshold. So every time my voice went over -4, this happened. Now, knowing this is 32-bit float, this does look like there might have been an issue for when it was switching between preamps. You see, 32-bit float is just two different 24-bit preamps, one at normal gain and then one at very low gain. Now, when your signal crosses a threshold, it'll swap to the low gain preamp. And then when that signal comes down again, it will revert back to the normal gain preamp, which is really cool. And it does kind of look like that now, doesn't it? Now, I can't guarantee this was the issue on a bit of a mismatch. And frustratingly, I can't seem to recreate the conditions that caused this. And I've been trying for the past week. So color me curious, but I have no idea what to say here other than if it shows up again, I'll let you know. Now, aside from that one hiccup, this thing does so many things really well. I mean, this is a wicked little unit and something that can easily be on your hip for a professional shoot, or even just an easy way to capture great audio straight into your camera. I think that's what I'm going to use it for. But it's in the little things that make this unit stand out, like that super bright screen. I had this thing out in super sunny conditions and I didn't have a single issue seeing the screen. The menus are very in-depth, as I mentioned before, but again, once you're used to this, it should be a breeze. I really like how they have a basic mode for the menus as well as an expert mode. Now, basic mode doesn't kneecap you too much, just a few less options for certain things. Like you only have gain control in basic, while you get fader control as well in expert. And really, this tally light has me sold. For $450, this is a fantastic deal. Now, I will say, as you accessorize this thing with things like the cage and this little pouch thing that you can get for your hip, the price does go up quite a bit, so keep that in mind. However, I will suggest this cage, which is only an extra $59. You do you, though. All of that said, though, do you think this review will finally get Zoom to send me one of their field recorders? Let's see. Cheers, guys, and thanks for watching.